Keir Starmer is desperately trying to prove that he's patriotic by wrapping himself in the flag.
Is it a credible move by the Prime Minister? And what's with all this flag waving anyway? He's going to frame Farage as the toxic force whose vision of Britain must be challenged, very Ed Davey. And he's going to make clear, however, that it's entirely legitimate to have concerns about illegal immigration and the need to improve border security. Let's not forget that this was the man who once said when he was a lawyer that there was something inherently racist about border control. Just going to put that out there. He wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for the rise of reform. This is the irony here.
So he's going to say everything under the sun. You can both be patriotically British, and there is a problem with migration, but also migration's great.
Yes.
We are a country with a clear identity, but we're also diverse.
Tim, can we do a little role reversal, and can I be professorial and pretend that I'm the historian and academic here?
Okay.
And
normally I pretend I'm the historian.
You do. You're the highbrow and I'm the lowbrow, but I'd like to flip positions because I did do a little study into the history of the St George's flag, which you will no doubt be familiar with.
Oh, yeah, it's like the back of my hand.
Indeed. So you answer me some questions. When did the St George's flag first emerge?
I have absolutely no idea. The Crusades.
Indeed. Knights Templar.
There you go.
And why was it red and white?
Well, that would normally be blood and purity.
Well, quite. It was because the Crusaders wore a white cloak with a red cross on the back because it looked so distinctive. And yes, of course, there was a link to sort of literally spilling blood in battle. It was meant to make them look well-armed. Okay, this continues. And then, of course, at which battle is the red and white cross most prominent?
Oh, how interesting. I don't know.
Agincourt, darling.
No, really, I was about
Yes.
to just take a gamble and say Agincourt.
If in doubt, always say Agincourt.
Right, Henry V, right.
Of course, and then we have Henry V declaring for God Almighty and St George, later immortalised by Shakespeare, and then it gets adopted into the Union flag, the George's flag, in 1606. In between all that, it should be stated that Edward I was very keen on the St George's cross because at the time he was fighting with the Scots and the Welsh and he wanted to reassert English identity.
Oh, England, my lion heart.
You see, this is A-level
very
history
good.
for you. I appreciate you've got a doctorate in it. But I think that's quite an interesting background, isn't it? It's interesting to look at the history of all this. There is something inherently English, and it is sort of steeped in history and heritage. And I think Agincourt sort of sums up why there are many English that are very attached to this symbol of what it means to be English and proud of our patron saint. And also, I'm just thinking in the back of my mind because my late mother was born on St George's Day, April the 23rd. She was very proud of that. She was born in Yorkshire. She was very proud of the white rose versus the red rose. This kind of red and white theme has been an important one for the English for centuries. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Have you seen a lot more flags flying recently than you had done before?
Not really, and that's because I live in the part of the countryside where people have flown flags for decades. And so I've been taken a bit by surprise by the fuss. Because everyone else is thinking, where all these flags come from? I'm thinking, you've not been flying flags?
Yes. OK, so it's kind of, that's the thing that happens in the Garden of England.
Yeah, St George's flag on a flagpole in a garden is really common or garden.
Do you know where I noticed it the most? It was when I travelled up to Oxford Airport for that reform immigration crackdown speech where Nigel Farage proudly had on display apparently the biggest union flag in the UK.
Right.
It was massive. It was the backdrop of this thing. And as I went up, it must have been the A40, there were lots of flags. I also take my son to football in a certain part of Hertfordshire every week, and somebody has painted on the roundabout. It's painted with a George cross. And so we have seen this. I think it was meant to be sort of taking a stand against two things. I think there was a stand being taken against the prolific flying of Palestinian flags.
Yes, correct.
And I think it was a stand taken against the notion that the St George's flag is a far-right fascist symbol. I think people who are ordinary, non-racist people concerned about the erosion of British values in this country started flying the flag to normalise celebration of all things English.
And the tragic irony is that it's now being treated as evidence of a revival of a racist far right. Whether that's accurate or not, that's what's happened.
Yeah.
It is worth remembering that the flags first started to be noticed back in July during the Lionesses' Euro campaign.
Yes.
Lioness is not normally seen as a far-right thing.
No.
So it began as just a display of patriotic support for a football
Well,
team.
some of the players were also being very patriotic. Some of the players came out and said, I'm so proud to be English.
Yeah.
And many people thought to themselves, I mean, you can be proud to be Scottish in this country. You can be a Scottish nationalist. If you're an English nationalist, that means a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a moment in the summer.
It's a totally unfair double standard. And then in August, because people were now hanging them from street lamps and from street furniture, some councils started to say, stop doing this because it's dangerous. Noticeably, Birmingham City Council, not a popular council to begin with because of its problems with the bins.
Still haven't been collected, as far as I
So
can tell.
a council telling people don't litter the high street when it's Birmingham with its bins problem is, paradoxical. But some councils started to say, please stop doing this. And some councils started to actually take them down. And that is what triggered people putting more of them up and doing things like painting roundabouts in the colours of the St. George's flag.
Context is everything, though, isn't it? So on the day of the march, that was the 13th of September, that Saturday.
This is the Tommy
the
Robinson
Tommy
March.
Robinson organised Unite the Kingdom March. We agree that there were many, many, many people on that march who were flying the flag proudly.
Yes.
Because they were English, they were British, and they have perfectly mainstream concerns, understandable worries that are not racist about mass migration, two-tier policing, the erosion of free speech in this country, extremist Islam, and all the rest of it. Even cost of living, shortage of housing, GP waiting lists, the NHS, you name it. That's why people turned out. But context is everything, isn't it? Because the flag waving there, some had denounced as being a far-right fascist concept. I, that night, was at the last night of the proms at the Royal Albert Hall.
Where middle-class people wave flags.
If
That's
fine.
If
If the middle classes wave flags,
yes,
that's perfectly acceptable.
That's
and then,
fun. That's
to be
japes.
fair, the flag war there is between the Union flag and the EU flag.
Yes.
And even outside the Royal Albert Hall, there are Remainer agitators
Tedious.
handing out these flags. It's like you're
So
so
tedious.
behind that. You're 10 years too late.
And also, it gives something away about their class, that their chosen battleground is the proms.
I know. But so context is key. But you noticed when you were at the Lib Dem conference that Tim Farron, the former party leader, was, I think the words you used were making love to a Union flag.
That is correct. That's what I saw.
We had Yvette Cooper literally insisting that she went to bed in Union flag pyjamas and a
That was
Union
brilliant.
flag
She had
duvet.
flags in every drawer, didn't she? She had Union Jack bunting. She had the whole works.
Which
yes.
we know is not
Was
the
she
case.
selling it?
I don't know
what was
she was
going
doing.
on. Was she running a party store in her spare time?
Actually, her description of her house with Ed Balls reminded me of Margaret Tyler, that royalist who is always visited when there's ever a jubilee or a royal
yes.
occasion, who is literally like, if you want to see bunting and then some, it's like, is this what Yvette Cooper's now become? So we had the ridiculousness of that, and now we understand that Keir Starmer is going to reclaim the flag in a speech on Friday. Can we actually believe what he's saying when we know that there are many in the Labour movement who are anti-St George's flag? Let's take this chap, Jeremy Newmark, who is a Labour councillor in Leafy Hertsmere, who described that flag-waving operation, which actually has an official name, Tim, it's called Operation Raise the Colours, as, quotes, an attempt by a bunch of criminals, extremists and nonces to hijack our national flag. And that does beg the question, is Starmer really a flag waver?
I think he probably is.
Yes. Why do you say that?
One thing I have never doubted about Keir Starmer is his patriotism. And I think it's unkind and unfair when the right impugns it.
Well, let me just caveat what I'm saying. I'm saying that because, and maybe these two statements can be true, Keir Starmer is a patriot, but Keir Starmer has had a history of suggesting that people who are flag wavers are inherently far right.
Right.
Because he used that description about the riots after Southport. And therefore people are suspicious
Yes.
when it comes to whether he is even-handed in his approach to people who have re-embraced the flag.
And what did David Cameron say about UKIP supporters, swivel-eyed loons, etc.?
Closet racists.
Closet racists and swivel-eyed loons. So it's not uncommon for centrist politicians to try to make a distinction between what they regard as sensible, normal, patriotism and extreme racist ideology. And I think such a distinction probably does exist in their defense. And there is an element of ideological nationalism which is emerging, I think caused by liberal error, caused by things like letting in vast numbers of migrants, caused by denigrating British culture, caused by pretending the English don't exist. That's a common one. And this has triggered a reaction in some people, which is becoming hard-edged and ideological. And so I think if you want to make a distinction between those two kinds of patriotism, as Ed Davey has tried to do, saying we're the centrist dad patriotism of he gave this ridiculous speech about village lawns and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
It's John Major type language, versus ideological nationalism, then I think that's politically salient, and I have some sympathy for it.
Also, isn't there a contradiction at the heart of what Starmer, Davey and others have preached? This idea that mass migration automatically leads to a wonderfully diverse and multicultural community that all gets along, when actually it's produced the opposite effect in some areas.
Yes.
And then they're surprised when
Yes.
people who appear to have been pushed down housing waiting lists, GP surgery lists,
Yes.
dentist lists, get quite angry when they feel that the British have been put at the back of the queue and actually been treated more badly than people who have come here illegally.
Yes. National identity is one of the hardest things to discuss because it's so complicated and it's about context and it changes over time. I know a lot of people are flying the flags because they feel they've not been allowed to express their national identity, particularly their English identity, confidently. They're sick of pen pushers telling them what they can and can't do. And how many other ways are there to express yourself except through the waving of a flag? I entirely get that. On the other hand, as I say, national identity is complicated. The Union flag is a flag of 4 different nations which have distinct cultures. We have been multicultural as a union for a very long time. The Union is essentially an empire. Arguably, it's London's empire. There are parts of England which feel disenfranchised from it, as well as parts of Scotland and Wales. We have an MP now who likes speaking a bit of Cornish, and quite right too. I'm all for that. The St. George's flag, to me, is an expression of Englishness in a very particular Christian context. People always love to say things like, St. George was Turkish, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, okay, he was, because England is Christian. It's historically Christian, right?
Well, I read a piece to you earlier, a little snippet of The Guardian saying, Richard Lionheart, he spent most of his life in France, didn't speak the language. It's a sort of typical Guardianista view on why we shouldn't be sort of flying the St. George flag.
And are they as being racially purist and saying you cannot use that flag as English because it has foreign connections? This makes no sense.
Well, it could be a symbol of wonderful European Union in that case.
Yeah.
The French Englishman,
but
the French living Englishman that flies the St. George's flag.
And is a reminder that British identity has evolved, is European, through Christianity, is also a bit Jewish, a bit North African. No one thinks it's narrow. My point is, those who look at the flag and say, don't fly that because it's a narrow definition of Britishness, it's not. An intelligent definition of it says it's absolutely not that.
I mean, in a way, I'm glad we're having this debate and that the nation is having this debate. Your bestie, Emily Thornberry, got into such trouble, didn't she, taking a photograph of St. George's flags in Rochester, I think it was.
Yes.
And sort of eye roll emojis. Ooh, this is disgusting. There's a white van man flying a flag.
Yes.
I think it was during a football competition. But
well, all she really said was, ooh, look at this.
Yes, but she was sneery about it.
We interpreted her as being sneery.
Oh, you're such a defender of Emily.
I do love Emily.
I know, it's because we're going to see her this weekend and you're buttering her up. But let me ask you this. So Downing Street has told the Telegraph the Prime Minister is particularly going to be keen on reclaiming the flag. He's going to say that the flag is for all of us. It should be a symbol of unity rather than a symbol of division, a symbol of pride, a symbol of inclusion. He's going to frame Farage as the toxic force whose vision of Britain must be challenged. Very Ed Davey. And he's going to make clear, however, that it's entirely legitimate to have concerns about illegal immigration and the need to improve border security. Let's not forget that this was the man who once said when he was a lawyer that there was something inherently racist about border control. Just going to put that out there. He wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for the rise of reform. This is the irony here.
So he's going to say everything under the sun. You can both be patriotically British, and there is a problem with migration, but also migration's great.
Yes.
We are a country with a clear identity, but we're also diverse. And this is why I come back to the interesting thing about identity, and you realize this as you get older, is its ambiguities and its nuance. In the way that families grow, someone marries in, or you mature, or you realize you're sick of living with this person. We change over time. Nations are the same. And if you try to pin this down, whether you're doing it from a right-wing point of view and saying being British is being white, well, that's dumb.
Yeah.
But equally, if you're doing it from a centrist point of view and you're saying being British is having this 5 values that I've put on a pledge card.
Yes.
That's dumb.
That I've carved into a stone.
To say Britishness is diversity, well, Singapore or Abu Dhabi are pretty diverse places. They're not necessarily British. It's about tolerance. Well, America has a constitutional framework built around tolerance. America isn't British, is it? No, nations are defined by history and by identity and by culture. And any attempt to fight over these things just becomes a tedious airing of grievances between people. To me, again, it's about maturity. My patriotism has become a much quieter and personal thing. I have a personal relationship with England, which is based upon its landscape, its people, and its culture. For me, it's Purcell, O fairest isle. It's that very quiet, gentle kind of Englishness.
Yeah.
It's not something I feel any need to parade down a high street waving a flag to prove that I believe it. And ultimately, the people who should have the final say on flags are people who've used a Union flag as a tourniquet after a gun battle with the Taliban in the Tora Bora caves.
No.
If you're a soldier, then you can hold a strong opinion on this and I will listen to you. Anyone else, you're just one opinion among many, and I don't see why anyone gets to define what Britishness is.
No, you're so right. I'm thinking it's Jerusalem, it's a heavily buttered crumpet, it's a
history.
scone, it's a Victoria sponge.
I had one of my best friends visiting from New York a couple of weeks ago. What does she want to go and see Knoll Park to look at the paintings? And I realised walking around with her, oh yeah, this is what England is.
Yeah.
It's not exclusively what it is, but our USP is this house is 500 or 600 years old.
Yeah. It's Anne Hathaway's cottage.
Yeah.
It's frankly a trip up the M40. It's a trip at the service station. It's so much in it. Shall we...
it's a Wimpy's...
It's a Wimpy.
In a service station on the M40.
Yes, with people looking at each other.
Yes.
Shrugging their shoulders and going, God, it's a long journey, isn't it?
And hoping no one's noticed the dog. You're hiding under the table because there is a big sign saying no dog.
And then it's rain outside and then people looking at each other going, oh, God, I've got to drive in this. Shall we dip into what people are saying on the Telegraph website, which has been inundated with comments about flag-related stories? M. Ross, I fly the Union flag and the England flag. I'm not far right, just a middle English male who loves my country, and I'm not happy about it being sold out to those who would wish us harm and have no intention of integrating into the British values, laws and customs which make us British. Read the room, Starmer. 99% of those on the march were not far right. They were people just like me.
I would add, if you want to prove you're patriotic, Keir Starmer, stop the boats, don't fly flags. Anna Leggett says, the far right, our national flags, are a disgrace in the eyes of Labour. To reclaim them now is far too little, far late. You have lost the people with your hatred of all things traditional and your contempt for the British people.